Right, hey everyone, it's me, Eldumbo, aka Luke, and I'm here to show you what I do with my own flow tokens and how I use increment.fi. Now, before I start, and I'll probably repeat this a couple of times, but obviously this is not intended to be, any sort of financial advice. Make sure you do your own research. I'm simply showing you what I do. I think it's really cool, and it's helped me increase my returns I'm getting when I'm staking my flow. But before I even start showing you that, I would say if you want to do this, make sure you read all this information you can find here on the increment.fi website. They have this great docs page, well, sort of entire section where, as you can see, they really in detail explain all sorts of different things. Now, I'm going to touch on some of these and very briefly explain it and probably explain it in a very inaccurate way. So make sure you read the docs before you do anything else. That being said, I've read them, I'm happy, I'm comfortable. So I'm now going to go ahead and show you what I would do with any flow I had that I wanted to stake using Increment FI. Well, actually, I'm going to show you probably 2 to 3 versions, but the concept's all kind of the same thing. So as you can see, just going back there, I was on the home page and I just click launch app, opens up a new tab. And then right now, I'm obviously not connected in any of my wallets to it. So I'm going to first log in, so to speak, connect to my Blockto. And I've actually set up an email address just for this, and I've already used it, so it shouldn't ask for 2FA because I signed in earlier with it. There we go, perfect. Now, as you can see, I've got 10,000 flow in this account, and this right here you can see is the swap tab, and there's all sorts of different things you can do in there. There's also the lending, the farm, the staking, and the C bridge, which is seller bridge. Now, I'm not going to worry about each of those for this video. I'm going to try and be kind of like streamlined towards what you can do, the steps you can follow if you want to get these higher returns from stake and flow like I do. Now, I'm going to go to staking, and this is a liquid staking tool, and they've got all the stats up here that are pretty interesting. Now, again, would really recommend you take the time to read this FAQ where it explains how liquid staking works. It's pretty cool. I'm going to explain it in my own words, but do not take that as fact. Again, DYOR. But basically, when I put flow into the increment staking platform, I get what's called ST flow, which is basically kind of my tokens that represent how much flow I staked, right? And so it's really interesting because they basically say, hey, come stake your flow here. And rather than paying you out the staking rewards every 2 weeks, we're going to instead pull all of that and we're going to say, okay, your SD flow represents your share of this pooled flow. And because all the staking rewards are going back into that pooled flow, it grows over time. Now, your SD flow doesn't grow, but the amount of flow you're going to get back from that is going to grow over time, which is pretty cool. You can also trade this just like any other token, which is why you see you can swap it in the decentralized exchange, where you'll actually get, in this example, slightly more SD flow than flow. Again, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it simple. So don't worry about too much about all these numbers you're seeing. The only one that's really important is probably this one when it tells you the next EBOC is. But for now, focus on this. So I'm going to put my flow in and get back this much ST flow. So I'm just going to liquid stake 10,000 flow. And as you can see, it's asking me to approve the transactional Blockto. I click, yep, easy enough. And it shows the estimated APY, which at the moment is 12.26%. I believe in Flow, it typically hangs around more like 8 to 10%, more in the 9% range. But right now it's there. Now it has gone through, success. Obviously, this isn't automatically deleted, but I'll do it. And so now you can see I have no flow, but I do, in fact, have ST flow. And what I'm now going to do is I'm going to go to the lending, the dashboard. And so this is a decentralized money market. And it's pretty cool. You can see all the flow that's been supplied, the USDC, the ST flow, etc. What I can do here is I can say, hey, I'm going to supply the ST flow that I just got from staking my flow. Remember, I just staked 10,000 flow, and now I have, this is all my ST flow, 9,123 point dot, 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 not too important, but it's about 9,000. I'm going to supply it into the decentralized money market. And you can see all this information here. It's really not too important for right now. In fact, really, the only one you ever look at is the limit used, but I'll explain that in a sec. So I hit supply. Again, it's going to pop up with a transaction for me to sign. Super easy. There's a slight wait time, obviously, for that transaction to finalize, and then you'll see it will pop up. If it does fail here, sometimes it does, I'd recommend, first of all, deleting this and just rounding down to this whole number. Same with when you're staking the flow. You do need a little bit in your wallet. It shouldn't happen with SD flow in the decentralized money market, but just as the first thing I'd recommend if you run into any issues. Okay, now you can see, quote unquote, my positions and my current net APR. Note, this doesn't account for the staking rewards. Okay, so what I've done right now is I've said, I'm going to stake my flow, and Increment.fi said, okay, cool, we're going to give you a token that represents your stake flow, right? Like at any point, anyone who's holding that ST flow can get back my flow, or some flow of the equal amount, I should say. And if they wait long enough, it'll be a higher amount. Now, the thing is, I've then taken that, supplied it, said, hey, anyone can borrow this if they want, and I'm going to make 0.004% APR on that. Not that much money, because there's not that much demand to borrow ST flow. That's not really important. What is important is on this decentralized money market, now that I've supplied this ST flow, I can borrow against what I've supplied to a certain amount. In this example, I could borrow USDC, FUSD, BLT, whatever, but I'm not. I'm going to borrow flow, right? And now it has this really handy tool called a Safe Max. And when you click that, basically what it does, it gives you the amount of flow you can borrow whilst keeping your limit at 60%. I want to be clear, if you're doing anything other than what I'm showing you, definitely stick to that limit used. The only reason I'm going above it is because flow and ST flow are very interlinked. So I don't expect there to be massive disparities between the value and the price point of them, right? So again, make sure you stick to limit used. Even with what I'm doing now, if you wanted to, you could. I'm going to go a little bit higher though, and I'm going to borrow, let's see what 5,500 looks like. I want to get to around 90%. Okay, yeah, it's a little bit over. I'm okay with that for now. So I click borrow, and again, I'm signing the transaction. And now, if I could explain this in a kind of non-Web3 way, basically what I've done is I've said, I'm going to put my money in this staking protocol, which is going to earn, a 9 to, well, at the moment 12%, but let's call it a 9% APY over the course of 12 months, where it's paying the staking rewards into the account every 2 weeks. It's compounding. That's great. Okay. And so what I'm going to do now is, it's going to seem a little bit crazy, but I'm very excited to do it. And so some of you might already be kind of thinking about what could happen here, but I'm going to show you. I'm going to take this 6,000 flow. I'm going to go back to the staking. I'm going to restake the 6,000 flow. And I'm going to get back an additional 5,472 ST flow. So our liquid stake. Again, if this one doesn't work for you, you might want to leave like one flow behind, whatever it is. You won't need more than one flow, but just for argument's sake, to make sure there's enough in your wallet for storage. That's one of the use cases of the Flow token in the Flow network, is that it works as storage on your account. The amount of tokens you can hold is determined by how much flow you have in there. Fortunately, the storage is super cheap and affordable, so you never have to worry about it. But in these cases where we're using all our flow, that might happen. Now, we've staked it all, and as you can see, the balance has gone down, etc. And I now, if I go back to the dashboard, here's the thing. I now have more ST flow. I have 5,472 more, and I've just clicked max. I'm, of course, going to once again supply this into the money market, and you'll see my limit use will go down, and I'm supplying it. I approve of it. And this is where it gets kind of fun once this goes through. Some of you, again, will already see what's coming. Yeah, oh, wow, my limit's gone down to 56.81%. And yeah, success, thanks for that. And now, as you'll see, I can now borrow more flow. If I was to do the Safe Max, it's only going to be a few hundred, because that's going to take me to 60% limit. But I'm probably going to go up to more like, let's see, I think I should be able to do about 3,000, 3,500. Feel free to play around these numbers. Like, you could type it all day until you get around 90%, right? 3,600, there we go. In fact, 90.9, that's basically 91. That's maybe a little bit high. So I'll go 3,500 and come in just under 90%. And I borrow it. And this, as some of you, I'm sure by now, are miles ahead of me, it's really that simple. I'm just going to keep repeating this a couple more times. I should be able to do at least twice more, but at the very least, once more. So this has gone through. I've borrowed my flow. It's not came through succeeded yet, but I can say I borrowed it because this is adjusted. Just give it a sec. There we go. Success. And I go back to stake it. And I'm going to repeat that. Now, as I go through this process once more, I just want to chat a little bit about what's going on here to kind of really explain it. Again, make sure you read the docs. What I'm saying is explanation. I shouldn't say really explain it. I'd say explain it from my point of view. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm saying I want to keep borrowing flow against the flow I've staked, and then keep restaking that borrowed flow, right? And as long as I keep my market limit low, borrow limit low, and I would say checking on it every sort of 1 to 2 weeks, maybe even once a month, depending on how sort of risk averse you are, but make sure it stays at that amount. It shouldn't adjust too much. And then, if it does, maybe I need to redeem a little bit of flow and increase my ST flow a little bit. It kind of really depends. But what I would say is that the reason this is so cool is because you're going to end up turning what was 10,000 flow in your in your kind of holding that you were staking into more like somewhere up towards 20,000 flow, right? Now again, I only actually own 10,000 flow. I will have to pay back that other 10,000 flow in the future. However, whilst I have it, I am getting at the current rate 12% APY on that flow, which is just, oh, sorry, I need to click the wrong thing, which is just insane when you think about it. I've now borrowed 9,500 flow. I've basically almost doubled the amount of flow I have staked thanks to this protocol. And the reason it works, the reason this kind of weird situation exists, is if I go and borrow 2,000 flow here, just wait for this to happen, is just kind of because the DeFi market on flow is still quite new. It's still kind of young and developing. And that means you get these interesting spots where basically the cost to borrow flow on this decentralized money market is so cheap that you can therefore borrow flow. Like this number right here is so low, it's only negative 1%. The flow staking rewards being at least, well, let's say on average 9%, that's basically an 8% profit when you borrow flow and then stake it. Again, that's going to change. Those numbers are going to adjust. I'm saying from what I can see right in front of me, and I am simplifying the process a little bit. But look, I've got 2,000 flow right now. If I go to staking and once again, stake 2,000 flow, and I get another 1,800 SD flow, and I repeat this process. And it's really bloody cool because I run this, for let's say 6 months, 12 months, whatever. That whole time, think of it like this: that whole time, that borrowed flow, I'm getting the SD flow growth, the rewards to it, whilst also paying that very small APY for borrowing the flow. And as long as the former number is bigger than the second number, this is a positive EV move for myself, right? And so that's basically what's happening. Now, for some people, that explanation would have helped. For others, it might have done absolutely zero help. So please reach out if that didn't make sense to you. And also, the way I'm doing it, some of you might realize that every time you resupply SD flow, your limit drops again. So you could actually borrow a high amount of flow than the 90% threshold that we're going off if you wanted to. You could, and I would do that in the final one, but generally I try to avoid that because then you are kind of playing with fire. So here, I'm going to borrow, let's go with 2,000 flow, and it does take me up to 95%, but when I resupply the SD flow at the end, it should drop me back down. And you'll see my current borrowing at the moment is about 1,300. I mean, here it says 11,500, but I've just added another 500. So there you can see the amount of flow I borrowed. And now this means I had 10,000 flow of my own. I've borrowed 13,500, and combined I have 23,500 flow, and all of that is staked. All of that is getting currently this APY. Whereas if I staked it in a traditional manner, I would have only had the first 10,000 flow getting me that APY return. And so that's why when I talk about this, and I'm being, and I don't want to be quoted too heavily on this, but you're basically able to double, if not more, the amount of APY you're getting for your stake flow, which is kind of crazy, right? Now, it's not exactly a doubling, because first of all, we have to account for the net APR you have here. That obviously affects your staking returns, not directly, but you get a certain amount of staking rewards, and then you have to pay a certain amount in this net APR here. But then also you have to account for the fact that this will adjust over time. This amount will adjust. So you have to be kind of wary of that. And like I say, keep an eye on it. Now, you see here, I've gotten around to about 87%. 87% of my borrow limit. And I'm quite happy with that. I don't want to push that extra few percent. I actually like having even more of a buffer because I feel like I have to check on it so much. I don't have to worry about it. So really, if you're coming in between anywhere from as low as 75 to 80%, but definitely no higher than 90%. That's really what I'd recommend. Aiming for between 80 to 90%. And again, DYOR and stuff like that. Now, if I can finalize the situation, again, I've repeated this a couple of times already, but I'll say again, I started with 10,000 flow. I've now borrowed 13,500 flow, give me a total of 23,500 flow, getting that APY. That's kind of crazy when you think about it. And you can do this with 1,000 flow, you can do this with 100,000 flow, or you can follow what I've just done and done it with 10,000 flow. You just have to adjust the numbers and be aware of that. The other thing I would say is don't go too crazy here. There's other ways you can stake your flow and get some other fun rewards and some kind of, not other fun rewards, but a different way take this concept and do other stuff with it, and I might make more videos on that. So don't put all your eggs in one basket, so to speak, but I have done this with the large majority of my flow. I personally am quite happy with it. I've been enjoying it. I've been seeing increased returns. And again, if you have any further questions, one, don't take this as just professional financial advice at all. It's not. It's me being a DJ and this is what I do with it. It's up to you if you do the same or not. Two, please do your own research. Read the docs, ask in the Increment.fi Discord, ask on Twitter. People are super friendly. Three, when they're talking about this at least. Three, reach out to myself if you have questions. I'm happy to kind of explain some of these things. I'm not gonna kind of screen share and walk you through it beyond this video, but this video, reading the docs, checking the Discord, and asking me should give you plenty of information you need, and I really recommend doing that. Even if it means you have to wait a few days before you start getting these higher returns, it's so worth it. When we're doing stuff like this, it's always better to play cautionary and be sure on what actions we're taking than get greedy and rush in just to get an extra week or two of a little bit higher returns. That being said, if you do this properly over the course of 1, 2, I don't know, 3 years, depending on how long the situation exists for, where the borrow rate of flow is so low on Increment.fi, you can really see some higher returns from this than you would traditional staking methods on the flow ecosystem. So yeah, that was my video. One other thing I would say is you can go to your account and there's, where is it? Maybe it's profile. Yeah, you can go to the profile page and it nicely summarizes the lending you have going on. It also shows, it doesn't show the staking, sorry. Oh yeah, it's just all here. So you can, again, see all this information quite nicely summarized here if it helps. And the other thing I would say is definitely take notes as you're doing it, just to keep on top of it. And when you do want to unstake, you will either need to get more flow so you can sort of repay your debt and then unstake all your ST flow at once, or you have to do it bit by bit, unstaking a little bit at a time as such. Well, first of all, taking it out of the money market, and then unstaking it. So I would first redeem a few thousand. I might redeem 2,500 like that. Then I'd unstake it, etc. But again, keep an eye on borrow limit. Don't let that get too crazy. And to be honest, personally, myself, whenever it comes to unstaking, I would probably instead just buy some flow on the exchange, pay off my debt, then get all my ST flow out, unstake it on the liquid staking protocol, wait a week or two for that to come in, and then maybe sell back the flow if I don't want to keep it, that additional flow that I had. Kind of, it's almost like I'm buying the flow just temporarily to pay off the debt until I unstake the ST flow. Hopefully that all makes sense. Again, reach out if it doesn't. Yeah, hopefully this was helpful, and if it wasn't, well, I'm sorry I wasted your time. All right, have a good one. Cheers.